So, these are my goals. Revision 1, Update 1. That naming scheme might get old fast, but here we go. I guess first what I'll do is just start with my lineup. These are the Valkyries that I'm choosing to, you could say, play with. You know, I got Valkyrie Ranger, Flames Sakatama, or who is this? Bolt Jonin, Yamabuki Armor, Kriegsmesser, Valkyrie Acceptor, Night Squire, Moonbow Rose, Night Moonbeam, Valkyrie Blade Strike, Valkyrie Pledge, Shadow Knight, Phoenix, HI3rd of Sentience. And that's pretty much it. I brought some Valkyries back into the lineup, mainly because I was trying to figure out who could I play with and how could I best use the equipment that I already own. And some of the Valkyries that I'm, you could say, like retiring in this iteration, I'm retiring Divine Prayer. She is double S, but it's like I can't, you know, when I go into raids now, because of how powerful some of the Valkyries are now, there's really no need for heals anymore. Before, you know, HI3rd of Thunder and all those guys, there were still situations where you still might need to throw out some heals because, you know, you didn't have the damage output to just obliterate, you know, the enemies. So now, because people can obliterate the enemies with the Valkyries that they've released, you know, like as of late, there's really no need for heals. And when I'm using Divine Prayer in a group, it's like I literally don't bring her in. I just let her sit in the background so that way her passive can always be, you know, impairing enemies. Let's see here. Another Valkyrie that will also pretty much stay in a like a, I don't want to say like a semi-retired or a passive use state. It would be Wolf's Dawn. I'm beginning to, you know, level her now, trying to get her to, you know, double S. This way I can make advantage of her, I believe, is it her passive? With Particle Shield on, they gain like bonus elemental damage. But it's the same thing with Wolf's Dawn. You know, I just basically put her in the group and she'll just sit in the background just so that way her shield can, you know, give the bonus elemental damage. Other than that, there's no real reason to play with her. I mean, I gave her the Ranger's laser just to put something on her to try to indicate, you know, my intention to use her and so forth. But that's really about it. After I get her double S, I'm just going to leave her ungeared. So we move on. Blood Rose. I did have her as a favorite, but I, you know, again, you could say practically retired her. She's still a part of a team, like my fire team, mainly because if there's ever content that comes along where I need to have all fire heroes, she qualifies. And there still might be a situation where I might need to bring her in, but because of some recent developments, mainly it was at Rev.1 down, I don't really need the, I guess, to bring her in to do damage or really to trigger the Ignite, mainly because the Rev.1 down, it gives an additional 40%, you know, damage, you know, every so often, every time the weapon acts off cooldown. And that extra 40% is enough to, you know, help pick up the slack on Phoenix when I'm using her for fire damage. Same thing with Sakuna Rondo. Semi-retired, I just bring her in. I just keep her in the group again, partially for the fire, for the fire team. She has the capacity to use the Ranger's Cross, which is really great for getting things ignited, like, you know, pretty quickly. And that's pretty much it. So I don't really need to put gear on her, really. I just put her on the team just the way it could be an all psychic team, which can activate Phoenix's leader skill. And then we come to Starlit Astrologist. I mean, it's basically the same thing. I mean, I don't have a weapon for her, and it's the same thing with Divine Prayer. I don't have a weapon for her either. I don't think I'm going to craft one. But you know, HI3rd of Sentience, or the people I'm using to play her with, they're already so strong that I just don't need equipment on her. I just need to put her in the group so this way I can just cast her abilities in the background. And with HI3rd of Sentience, you know, she can impair. And if I plan to use her with Night Squire, I could always build a team with her, with Starlit Astrologist, Night Squire, as well as Divine Prayer. So this way, Night Squire has an impair going on, and that should be enough for me just to be able to beat whatever the enemy is. And let's see here. That's pretty much it. I don't have any plans to build any other heroes. None of these other heroes were in my lineup. So that's pretty much the deal. To go through, I think I clicked on everyone so you could see what the equipment is. My main goal was to get all the heroes who have raid weapons. I wanted to get them in equipment so this way, you know, they could just be readily playable. Because in a raid, you know, when you play with them until you clear it, the Valkyrie as well as the equipment becomes locked. So you need to have multiple pieces of equipment ready to go. So right now the people who have raid equipment is Yamabuki armor. She has the Star of Eden, so I make sure she has some equipment on her. Valkyrie Acceptor, or Hawk of the Fog, she has raid equipment, so I made sure there's equipment on her. It doesn't have to be the best equipment. You just need to be able to be, you know, somewhat capable in the raid. The next person who has raid equipment is, I put it on Night Moonbeam. So she has raid equipment, so I make sure, a raid weapon, so I make sure she has equipment. Going back to Valkyrie Blade Striker, what I plan to do is use the beginner's equipment, which should be this guy. So, you know, I've had this piece of equipment before. I have to reacquire it, and I'm going to put that on her. And I went back to Valkyrie Blade. She has raid equipment, raid weapons, so I made sure she has the Stigmata set. And I'm going to be using Phoenix in raids now because of the Feng-1 down. So, you know, that's what's going on there. And that basically covers all the people that I'm using with raid equipment. The piece of equipment that's raid that I've retired is the Greatsword. You know, I converted Feng-1 down into a raid weapon, and I just recently discovered from watching previews of you know, versions on the CN server that in 4.8 apparently they're planning to make Feng-1 down a pre-arm, and they're planning to make, you know, Nebulous Duality a pre-arm as well. Part of me wishes I hadn't converted Feng-1 down into a divine key, but at the same time, I made sure that I leveled the weapon up max, which it may not matter, but I leveled the weapon up completely before doing it. So this way, if I wanted to make a raid weapon, I just needed to get another pair of gloves, of any gloves. But at the same time, I don't want to have a duplicate weapon of the same thing, just of different types. I don't really think that makes sense. And, you know, Phoenix, as far as virus damage, I know that she's good damage dealer, but she, you know, with the way they're building the Valkyries that are coming out now, she just doesn't have the output, the skills to make it work. And when I look at how they're buffing the pre-arm, it's not really turning her into like an ultra damage machine. She will be doing more damage, but it's just not enough to compare to, let's say, what, Dia and Korra or something like that, or to compare to Valkyrie Valkyrie Eclipse, Vermilion Knight Eclipse, people like that. So I know the limitations, so I don't think I'm going to make a pre-arm for Phoenix. But I retired this weapon mainly because since I have Fang 1 down, I retired the Cleaver Smash because since I have Fang 1 down, I have another raid weapon to use in gameplay. And since I don't have a Valkyrie that I'm currently choosing to play with to use this weapon, I just retired it. Now, the other thing, as far as my goals, it's moving towards this. I guess there's other parts. I guess I talked about like the raid and the equipment that I retired and the Valkyrie lineup. I guess what I'll do is, I guess talk about non-raid weapons real fast. But in order to do that, I have to go to 2 Valkyries. The 2 Valkyries I wanted to quickly mention is the Flame Sakatama. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get her signature weapon, which I've gotten before and salvaged. So I either salvaged it or converted it to weapon resonance because I didn't really have any intentions to, build it. And the other person that I'm going to get the signature weapon for is for Himiko, or Kriegsmesser. I'm going to get her signature weapon. And the main reason why I'm doing that is because in the Valkyries in the lineup, in order to use the equipment I have to the best of my capability, I had to put other weapons on other heroes and retire some weapons because in my mind, I play with Flame Sakatama and Kriegsmesser on the same team. I've been using Cleaver Smash on Kriegsmesser, but since I don't have a raid weapon that I can designate to Flame Sakatama, I don't want to have that mismatch of in a team, because in my mixed elemental team to have one with a raid weapon and then one with the signature weapon. So I wanted to have both with a signature weapon. So this way, when I'm thinking about them doing damage, I kind of want them to be in a similar space as far as what their output could be. And one having a signature and one having a raid, it would make their output very, uneven. And as far as what I could expect. So I'm going to get their signature weapons. Now, the reason why I'm going to get their signature weapons is because some time ago, there was the Dante focus supply for Bright Knight Excelsior. And I tried to, I dropped some crystals. I dropped like over, I think 8K crystals or something of what I saved up just through saving, playing the game, as well as monthly passes. And I did not get a Stigmata piece. The reason why I dropped crystals on that focus supply is because it had the Umbral Rose Wild Stigmata set in that focus supply. So I was hoping that maybe I could do some pulls and get a piece of Wild. But what ended up happening is that I got a whole bunch of weapons. I got one piece of Dante and a whole bunch of weapons. So what that ended up doing was leaving me with a whole bunch of weapon resonance. So I had about 7K weapon resonance after it was all said and done, combined with what I had already acquired. So I was like, okay, well, what am I going to do with all this weapon resonance? And so after I started going over my Valkyrie lineup and trying to figure out, well, how best can I use these Valkyries based on, what I've learned after playing with them and trying them out in the teams that I want to put them in. And after reordering my teams, it seemed like, okay, this is a good opportunity for me to get their signature weapons. So what I ended up having to do was make some more supply pulls, but in the dorm supply. And I was hoping that I could get one weapon that I can use to make the to get to 8K, and I did. I ended up getting like the heavy cannon weapon, like a sacred relic, and I just converted that to weapon resonance, and that gave me the 8K. So now when next week comes, I'll be able to go to the supply shop. Go to the exchange shop, and then hopefully I'll be able to pick up their signature weapons for Flames like Atama and Creek Messer. Now, the reason why I changed my lineup is because I started to play, like with the Valkyries I had, I was playing with them in teams, and I've been observing, over time, just absorbing their performance, how they're meshing, what's necessary, what did I need to do. Again, after acquiring the Fang 1 down, after trying to play with teams the way I would like, I started realizing where, let's say, other Valkyries excelled, and where other Valkyries that I put on a team didn't really seem to be useful in order for me to beat, just to be able to beat, not to be able to, let's say, compete, but just to be able to beat the enemies I was facing. So in order to show what I'm talking about, I'm just going to have to pull up something to where I could pull up a preset team. That's not what I wanted. I can't do this yet, sorry. I have to bring up something that will allow me to just get to a preset team. Okay, if I prepare, preset team. So the preset team that I wanted to play with was my mixed physical DPS. And so I was trying to see how can I get my mixed physical DPS team, which is Umber Rose, Night Squire, and Void Ranger, or Valkyrie Ranger. How can I get them to, is Valkyrie Ranger or Void Drifter? How can I get this team to like mesh with each other? And I started realizing that I was having difficulty to get them to really play off each other, like triggering QTEs and all this other stuff. And like what it would take in order for me to get them to trigger each person's QTE, it wasn't worth the investment into those pieces of equipment. For instance, Umber Rose, her QTE is triggered when, an enemy is impaired, or whenever an enemy is impaired. So you got Night Squire, whose QTE is triggered whenever an enemy is knocked airborne. And then you have Void Drifter or Valkyrie Ranger, whose QTE is triggered whenever an enemy is impaired or weakened. Well, in order to try to get Umber Rose to be able to weaken an enemy or even impair an enemy, I would have to invest it to either Durak or Zoro, and that's not an investment I want to make for Umber Rose. For Void Ranger, I keep saying Void Ranger. For Void Drifter or Valkyrie Ranger, I would have to get her signature weapon or put her in Durak or Zoro, and that's right now getting her signature weapon is out of reach because I don't even see supply drops for it. And if one has occurred, I missed it. And then of course I would have to dump a lot of crystals until I get her signature weapon. So that's not really a commitment I really want to make. I want her signature weapon, but trying to dump a lot of crystals to get it isn't really what I really wanted to do. The only reason why I even spent the crystals on trying to get the wild, now I'm segueing here, is because of how long it will take for me to get all the Stigmata pieces just by saving. So I wanted to try to expedite it. That didn't pan out, so I don't really want to spend any more crystals. So getting back on topic, the other thing is that when I started trying to play with, Void Drifter in this team for my mixed physical, I started realizing that, she wasn't really doing enough damage to justify bringing her in. And since I couldn't really find a way to trigger her QTE, like the damage she would do from her QTE wasn't happening either. So it was like, just to switch her in, do her combo attacks, and be done. The other hero that I wanted to bring in was still on cooldown. Also too, when fighting certain bosses or enemies, let's say if I'm trying to bring in Night Squire, I would have to begin with Umbu Rose first. This way I could bring in Void Drifter, who then I could bring in Night Squire. But trying to go through that cycle, I was losing DPS because the person who was doing the most damage was Night Squire. So by me playing with the other heroes or the other Valkyries on the team, I was not getting SP for Night Squire. So even when I was ready to bring Night Squire in, she didn't have any SP to go into her ultimate. I mean, to cast her ultimate or to go into burst mode. So I had to keep playing with Night Squire in order to be able to keep building her SP, so this way she can go into her ultimate more reliably or more frequently. And since I don't have, like, you know, Celestial Hymn or any of the other characters or their weapons to help boost SP, you know, I have to work with what I have. So after realizing that those two things combined made me say, well, it looks like trying to play with you know, Void Drifter isn't really working. Trying to get this team, my mixed physical DPS team, to mesh with QTE trigger, like QTE chaining, it's not really, you know, working out. So, you know, I had to start like reconsidering things. Also too, I did manage to get the Dracula Stigmata set completed. I guess it's not showing here, but you can see the Dracula is there. Dracula. And the performance from the Dracula Stigmata set is as I expected. It's pretty good. When I'm able to get her into burst mode, the damage is nice. But what I've come to learn, since I've decided to not try to get Void Drifter to work, and I decided to move equipment around, I decided to put Void Drifter in beginner equipment as well as beginner weapon. As I was trying to decide what to do with the HI3rd Stigmata set and the Dracula Stigmata set, I began, in that process, I started to compare their damage to see which one should I keep. And I discovered that the HI3rd Stigmata set does more damage than the Dracula. You know, not one, I'm able to get into burst mode faster because the HI3rd bottom, it provides SP once you hit like elated mode. Also too, the damage is more, it's more, let's say, consistent, because the HI3rd, all it requires is that I attack the enemy. I don't have to be in burst mode. So all the features of the HI3rd Stigmata set, the 2-piece as well as the 3-piece, it will come into play. Even though the 3-piece is not beneficial to Night Squire, the 2-piece is, and it will come into play even when I'm not in burst mode. So I will be gaining the benefit of increased damage throughout the entirety of the fight, whereas with Dracula, I have to be in burst mode. So because of that reason, also too, the Dracula, it gives me increased crit damage on the 2-piece, whereas the HI3rd, it just gives me a flat increase to physical damage on the 2-piece. So that means that's a 50% increase in physical damage, even if I don't crit. So the damage output turned out to be better with the HI3rd on Night Squire than going with Dracula, even though Night Squire does bleed when she's in burst mode. So what I've decided to do is, even though I just crafted the Dracula, you know, I'm currently in the process of unlocking it. So this way I can salvage the equipment. So this will unlock in 12 hours. I'll be able to salvage the equipment, and then I'll be able to use that to put towards getting pieces of wild. I currently have, 3,000 Stigmata resonance. So I'll be able to take those 3 pieces of Dracula and get 3,000 more Stigmata resonance, and then I'll be able to use that to get at least 1 piece of wild, which will help to expedite my process of acquiring all the wild pieces. So then my goal now is to keep crafting Stigmata pieces, so this way I could try to expedite getting all the wild Stigmata set pieces. So I guess that's pretty much pretty much it. This is like, my goals for Rev.1, Upd.1. This is where I'm planning to go now after, doing testing and playing and seeing how the teams are working out. I guess one last thing I wanted to mention is this, as I was considering the Stigmatas, this Schroeder's band is proving to be a very versatile Stigmata set. I'm glad that I held on to the pieces of the Stigmata set. And I've used this on Uber Rose. Even though Uber Rose does not do combo attacks, she does her thing as charge attacks, it still proved to be potent enough on her to where I was able to go into Memorial Arena and I was able to beat Shadow Knight. I mean, unfortunately, I can't really bring up the pieces because I used all my attempts. But if I go into trade, but if you see the locked Valkyries, you could see that, Uber Rose is one of the Valkyries that was locked here. I mean, I've switched her. It's only showing me what's on them now. Unfortunately, I would have to be able to bring up the screen to actually start to show locked equipment. But I used Uber Rose with Schroeder's band and I was able to defeat her on SS difficulty. So that Schroeder's band is proven to be very versatile. And because of that versatility, because not only can I use it on people who don't even do combos and it can still be provide a potent amount of damage, I can use it on all the other Kianas that I have in order to trigger all the set bonuses. And I can use it on other Valkyries who I play with that do a lot of combo attacks should I ever need to get them to do more damage. So it's just proven to be a very versatile set. So I guess that's it. Those are, I guess that's it for this video. I'll try to, talk about or keep making updates as, as something significant occurs or significant changes happen. But hopefully this will give you some insight as to my logic and, what I'm doing. I mentioned I did do testing, so I'll spare you from all the testing when I was comparing the Schroeder's band and the Dracula. And I think I explained why the Schroeder's band is better. But this is what's going on. This is where I'm moving. This is what I'm moving ahead with. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Peace.